Hi everybody, it's Susan from Sunrise Quilt Studio, and today's block is called Jewel Box, and this is a 16-inch block. It's made with half square triangles, 2-patch units, and flying geese units. So it goes together really easily and pretty quickly, and it makes an interesting block. So I hope you'll stay with me, and I'll show you how to make the Jewel Box block. Okay, here are the fabrics that we need to make the Jewel Box block. For A, we need one 4.5-inch square. B is two 5-inch squares. C is four 2.5 by 4.5-inch rectangles. D is four 2.5 by 4.5-inch rectangles. E is 8 2.5-inch squares. F is two 5-inch squares. G is four 2.5 by 4.5-inch rectangles. H is 12 2.5-inch squares, and I is 8 2.5-inch squares. So I'll adjust the camera and we'll get started sewing. First thing we're going to do is to make flying geese units. So we need the I squares and the C rectangles. And on the back of the I squares, I have drawn a diagonal line with a pencil. And we're going to make 4 flying geese units. So we're going to put the C square, we're going to put the I square on the C rectangle, and the diagonal line is going to run from the top center to the bottom right hand corner, and I'm going to sew right on that drawn line. Now you probably know there are a lot of different ways to make flying geese units, so use your favorite method. This is just a more traditional way. This way you don't need foundation paper and you don't need calculations on how to make 4 at a time or anything like that, which if you like doing it that way, you go ahead and do it that way. Okay, so I'm going to press this back and we'll have this shape. Okay, so we have this, and now I'm going to sew another square to the other side, and the drawn line is going to go from the top center to the bottom left hand corner this time. Okay, I'm going to trim this outer corner, leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and press that triangle back. Okay, so we need to make 4 of these. Okay, so we have all 4 flying geese units, and now I'm going to take 2 of these flying geese units and I'm going to sew H squares to both of the short ends. So I'll need 4 of those. And what we're doing is we're making the center part of the block. I'm going to turn around and sew a square to the other side. Okay, I'm going to press these. Okay, so now I have 2 of these. These will be the top and the bottom rows of the center section. Okay, so now I have the A square and the last 2 flying geese units, and I'm going to sew a flying geese unit to opposite sides of the A square. And the prints are going to match up. Okay, so what we have is this, and that's the center of the center unit. So I'm going to press towards the A square. Okay, so here we go, and now I'm going to sew the top and the bottom rows. So the flying geese are going to point out, so I'm matching the colors. And my seams are pressed in opposite directions, so I can nest those. And I'm going to pin. Turn around and sew the row onto the opposite side. Okay, now I'm going to press these open. Okay, so here we have that. So I'm going to set this aside, and now we need to make some half square triangles, and we need B squares and F squares to do that. And we're going to make 4 half square triangles. So I have a diagonal line drawn on the wrong side of the F squares. So we're just going to place these right sides together. And this time we're going to sew a 1/4 inch away from that drawn line on both sides. And since these are large pieces, I'm going to go ahead and put in a couple of pins to help keep things from shifting. And you may hear our dog in the background. She's downstairs playing. She has found her voice. And when I first introduced her on the channel, I said she didn't bark, she just squeaked. Well, she barks now, quite a bit. Okay, now I need to cut these on the diagonal line. And these are going to be a little oversized, so you need to trim these down to 4.5 inches square. Now if you want them to come out exactly the right size, you can cut these at 4 7/8 instead of 5 inches. But I always find that that makes them just a little bit too small, so I like to oversize them and then trim down. Okay, here are all the half square triangles. I'm going to set them aside, and now I'm going to make some 2-patch units with the E squares and the H squares. We're going to make 8 sets of these, so we're just going to sew them, chain piecing them together. Okay, I'm going to cut these apart and then press them. Okay, so I have all the 2 patches. I'm going to set them aside, and I'm going to make another set of 2 patches with rectangles. So we have the G rectangles and the D rectangles. So we're going to sew these together on the long edge. Okay, I'm going to press these towards the darker fabric too. Okay, so I have all 4 of those. So now we're going to sew those to the 2 patches we just did prior to this. And we're going to put them on these smaller 2-inch squares. Are going to go to opposite ends of these rectangles. So they're going to go like that. So I'm going to go ahead and sew those on, and since the seams are both pressed towards the dark fabric, those seams will nest together. So I'm going to go ahead and pin those, and we'll sew all of these together, and we're going to make 4 of these units. And I'm going to go ahead and pin everything first. Kind of save time when I start sewing. Okay, so I got one end pinned, and then I'm going to sew, and then I'll pin the other end. Okay, I'll clip these apart, and then I'll sew the ones to the other side. So this is what we have right now, and now I'm going to sew the rest of these 2 patches to the opposite side. Okay, so this is what those units look like. So now we need to take 2 of these units, and we're going to sew things into rows. So our first row is going to have the half square triangles one on each side. And follow that diagram so you know which way to place those. But the print fabric is going to go out, and the long print triangle is going to be on the top. So they're going to go like this. Like that. So watch your diagram for that. Now for the center, we're going to take the center block and we're going to sew one of these two opposite sides, and we're going to put the white rectangle towards the center. And we're going to nest these seams. Okay, now we're going to press and then sew all 3 rows together. Okay, this is a 16-inch block, so I'm going to back out so you can see this a little better. Here is the top row, and now the bottom row is the same. You sew them just the same, you just turn it when you put it on the block. So keep that in mind when you're sewing your units together or your rows together. And here's the center row. So we have the center block, which forms a square and a square, and we're going to put these so that the print on these outer rows is going to go out, so the white here is going to go towards the center. So we're just going to match up seams and sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and this should turn out just fine. And this is a really fairly easy block to make, and I think the larger size of this block is a help. And you can make this an 8-inch block, but you're going to have 1-inch squares, and your flying geese units would be 1 by 2. So you cut them at 1.5 by 2.5, so they'll be pretty small. And I prefer not to deal with really small pieces, but that's just a personal preference. A lot of people prefer to work with small pieces. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pin the other row on. All right, sew this. I'm going to press and we'll look at the block. Okay, here's the completed jewel box block. Went together really easily, and it's really pretty simple to make. You just have half square triangles and flying geese units here, and the rest are squares and rectangles. So use colors that you like, and you can put this together to make a one block quilt as far as just, you know, repeating the same block over and over again. I think that would give an interesting pattern, and you'd have a nice secondary pattern in your quilt if you decide to do that. This one is going to go into my sampler quilt, and it's going to have a combination of 8-inch and 16-inch blocks. So I've got that all planned out, and I'll give you a little sneak peek of this. The picture I'm going to show you is using a completely different fabric line, and I haven't been able to find that particular line anymore. It's out of print. So I'm just making this out of all of the scraps I have left over from all the Lori Holt fabric that I have, and so it's going to look different. And I do have some fabric that I need to purchase to make some of the background blocks, but I'll show you the quilt when I get it done, and I will recolor it as soon as I get all of these blocks done. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you'll give this block a try. Okay, that is it for the Jewel Box block. This turned out really nice, and I'm really happy with it. I think it's an interesting block, and I really am. I'm going to play around with this block and on my EQ8 and see what it looks like as a repeated block in a quilt. I think that'd be really interesting. Anyway, I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please click that like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and click that notification bell so you'll be notified when the next video comes up. And in the meantime, I hope you're all staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. For more quilting ideas, click on the video links, and to keep up with my latest projects, click on the subscribe button. I hope to see you again soon.